You found your little guy that you lost in the snow like over a week ago?
Yep.
That's so cool.
Actually, just go back in the snow.
Yeah? So hey everyone, welcome back to Go and Grow Homestead. Today I've got my trusty helper for part of this video, Daniel. And the chickens already had put themselves to bed, but since we're in here, you know, disturbing them, they came, a couple of them are at the door like, what are you guys doing? What's going on over there? And I have their light in there for additional light to help them lay eggs better. I need to turn that off when we get to that part. So today we're going to be talking about the types of things that you want in your run and your coop. So chicken supplies, chicken accessories. So Daniel, what was this right here that you were just on?
Chicken string, and literally goes like, I'm here and I'm sitting like a chicken.
Yeah, and they perch on it.
Yep.
It's also, you know, draws the young kids in. All right, so the next thing I wanted to show you, of course, is chicken waterers. These are the standard, least expensive plastic ones that you can get. You know, you can hang them or set them down. We just ended up hanging up this one because they have some handy feet on the bottom of them, which I'm going to pull out here for you. They have 3 of those. This particular one does anyway. And so you can set it down in the dirt, or in this case we have sand in our run or wherever, and just so it's up off the ground and gets less dirt and yuckiness in there. And yes, that is just from being out here for one day. Chickens are very messy. But we ended up hanging this one up just because the one of the feet on the bottom broke off. So still very usable, but obviously it's not going to sit level and even anymore. And then this one we just have sitting there. There are lots of different types of chicken waters, so do your research, pick which one you want. The next, same thing for the feeders. There are a lot of different types and methods for feeding chickens. One thing I'd like to do eventually is you could do PVC pipes that are kind of large, kind of attach them to the wall of your run, and then they, you know, are self-feeding to where they come all the way down. They have kind of an outspout, and then it's just you're filling it at the top with a cap on it, and then you know, the feed comes out and they eat as needed. That's just another project. So again, these are kind of the easiest things to get started with, but there are a lot of different types of feeders, so look into those. For this, I ended up buying a couple of extra bowls. These are just the only ones I could find at the time at my particular farm supply store. But this would be a great thing for the, and I'll go over that in another video, fermented or wet food method. That's what I kind of originally bought them for. And then now that it's winter and they're kind of stuck in the run most of the time, and I don't want to just throw treats directly onto the sand. I mean, yes, they need grit, but they're already getting that in the food that we give them, so I don't want them also like eating a bunch of dust or this kind of sand particularly. So I pour their treats in the bowls each day. Have a couple of them because we have 19 chickens and, you know, they all kind of fight. So that's something else that's really good to add. And then over here in the corner, we have this thing that my husband built, and the chickens do love it and use it. It's just 2 logs and a branch. So this is just stuff that was on our property, and he just, you know, screwed it together. His ended up working like a little barrier for us, sectioning this corner off, but also they do get up there and walk on it and sit on it and perch on it. And then when the plastic isn't up, they can see out of the run. They are free ranging, but again, if they're in here, they can jump up there and just kind of see out what's going on. In this storage bucket, I have these, doesn't look like it, but it does seal really well. So you want something that's going to seal well if you're going to store things this way. But right now I just have my DE or diatomaceous earth. You pointed it out for me. Thanks, honey. And because we're out of treats, but I usually have a couple of different types of treat bags that I'll keep in here. Obviously this keeps the chickens out so they're not getting too much at one time. It keeps other animals out, such as mice, and we get squirrels in here a lot, or things like that when the doors open. And then obviously you see how dirty they are, so it keeps things clean. This one, the lid doesn't work as well, but it still functions well as a storage bucket. So this is where their feed is, and I've got just an old cup to scoop with. This is currently the feed that we're using. It's Kalmbach brand. I'm going to do another video on that too, just the different types of feed and feeding methods. But the bags are pretty large, so that's sort of new. The bucket's full, obviously. The feeders are full. So then I just keep that bag in here for a couple more days and empty it, and then get rid of the bag. The next things that you might want in your run, since we do have sand in our run, you want a sieve shovel. I got this one on Amazon. I don't remember the brand, but it's really good. It has worked well. So it's like a giant litter scoop. This other shovel just needs to go back to the house. I was just in here from summer when we were putting the sand in the run and shoveling it in here by shovel loads one at a time. This square area over here, haven't had the time to fully develop it, but I wanted that to be a dust box for the chickens. That needs to be really fine sand and dirt though, like really powdery dirt, and or putting like your wood ash in there, mixing that with some kind of dirt, or peat moss I've heard is good. So right now it just has a lot of the sand, the gravelly sand that's in the run, and they don't really use it for that purpose currently. But that's what I have that in here for. And we'll talk more about toys again later. But the swing is one of the toys that you might want to add down the line. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting bedtime. Okay, so we're moving to the coop now just to show you what's in here. And yes, like I've said, I'm kind of interrupting their bedtime, but I needed to come back and turn their light off anyway. The light in the winter, since we have shorter days and not enough light, that helps encourage them to lay, you know, more eggs or a little bit more often than they normally would. But obviously you don't want to leave it on all the time. So let's get to some of the stuff that you might want in the coop. The first thing, of course, is coop and egg box bedding. This is an egg box here. These are our 4 main egg boxes that kind of face the outside of the coop. Then I have another egg box down there, sorry. And I've done another video on this, so you can look back at that for like the types of, you know, bedding and stuff that you want inside the coop and the egg boxes. But straw or pine shavings are the most common bedding types. You can also use hemp bedding or dry leaves when they fall in the autumn. Just want to make sure everything is dry. You can also mix any of those bedding types together. Some people like aspen wood shaving nesting boxes or rubber mats for the inside of their nesting boxes. We've tried the aspen nesting pads, and I didn't have good results with those. But some people love them, so look those up and see if that's something you think you'd be interested in. The rubber nesting pad mats do provide some cushion, and they are washable. But for now, we're just using straw, and that has worked just fine for us. Right? Yeah. The next thing you'll want is a thermometer. So of any kind. Could be manual, digital, as long as it's in there. This is important for both winter and summer. You need to be aware if your coop is getting too hot or too cold. So like right now, I think we're at 30 degrees outside, probably a little bit less now that the sun is going down. And you can see that we're, 36, 37 degrees in here. That's actually really good. So chickens can handle a wide range of weather and temperatures in particular, but they do need time to adjust to that. So for example, you don't want to have them in 70-degree weather and then suddenly it's 20 degrees the next day. So for that I'm kind of referring to like if you have a coop heater and it goes off, or you turn it off and it's the winter, and then suddenly their bodies have to adjust to no heat at all. That's another reason that a lot of people don't use those heated lamps anymore, other than being a fire risk, which is the #1 risk with those. But that's another thing. If your power goes off, or the lamp fails, or gets unplugged, or whatever, they need time to adjust, so that doesn't work well. Another thing, like if it's too hot in the summer, for example, we'll leave our large door to the coop open, this one right here, and let things air out. Obviously get some air flow in there. That's good to help with some odor management as well. But if it's too cold in the winter, you need to assess if more bedding is needed or additional insulation for your coop, either in the form of whole straw bales, more straw on your floor, for example, or built up around your walls, or if you need to do some kind of actual insulation in the walls the following spring. If you do that, whoopsie, somebody fell. If you do that, put insulation up, you do want to cover that with some kind of wall board. If you don't, they will peck at insulation. There's a lot of people that talk about chickens eating styrofoam and that they might find laying around somewhere. For example, this wall right here behind their roosting bars, we actually did add that wall, and you can kind of see the outer wall there of the coop itself. And we put some insulation up and then put this additional wall. I just felt like where they're sleeping at night would be the best wall to try to better insulate. As well as that was the one that I felt like was just more thin. You could almost see light through it in some places actually. So I think that was a really good thing, and that's helping keep a more steady temperature in here this year. This wall of the coop faces and is part of our attached run. So it gets a little bit of windbreak and insulation just because it's attached to the enclosed run. This wall, of course, is our outdoor, so we don't want to insulate that. I did want to put up some rubber. This is just, it's not fully shut right now. I do want to put up some rubber molding here just to help with maybe some breeze coming through. But you can't really insulate this side. You could insulate over here on the wall if you wanted. And then this side is pretty well, you know, it's okay. That's a really good window. It seals well. Good for temperature control, but also it has the nesting boxes, so just a little bit of a buffer between like just a straight wall and then the chicken. So another thing that you might want to have handy for the coop, and I don't keep it here in the coop, it would just get knocked over and get really dirty, obviously, but a flat-edged shovel. So that is really a must for when you go to clean out the coop and you need to get rid of all of this old straw or whatever your old bedding is. That will make your work a lot faster, a lot cleaner, or just, you know, go easier. The traditional spade style shovel doesn't work real well. It's just going to take you longer. And then obviously like my sieve shovel that I use for the run wouldn't be ideal for here either. So I recommend that. And then I do also recommend a scraping and brush tool. So when you are doing a deep clean of your coop or just some other kind of clean, that's like one of those mixing, that's one of those mixing bowl scrapers that's actually meant for your kitchen, but I bought it with the intention of just putting it right out here. You know, the poop gets stuck to things, dries on hard, is difficult to come off. So if you need to scrape it, for example, just off of like a flat surface, you know, scrape. So I don't use the brush and broom very often. In the summer, when I'm really keeping up on the poop shelf here, this is mostly where I use it. I do still clean this in the winter, of course, but that's just more a quick clean with the straight edge shovel, you know, scraping all of that off, disposing of it, and putting some fresh straw down, right? But that might be something else that you want to have. Okay, the next things I want to talk about are going to be things that are more permanently attached to the coop. So obviously roosting bars. This is, you know, one of our better options, by the way. Some kind of flat 2x4 style. I've seen people that have wider shelves that are flat with enough room for their feet to sit flat, like you can see right here. This was something we just did temporarily over the summer. Obviously it's free. We live on a lot of wooded acres, and it was a branch that we could use as a bar, and it was just readily available. I don't like the angle of it. It's really not the best thing, and we just didn't have time to change it. They seem to be okay with it, but what you really don't want in winter is for their feet to be curved and curled around something that, you know, their feathers. See how she's sitting on most of her feet right now, and you can see just her little toe peeking out. Their feathers and their body help keep their feet warm, so if they're sitting on a flat surface, their feet will be flat, their balance is better, you know, they're going to be able to keep themselves warmer, that sort of thing. I mean, I've not really noticed them falling off of this. They're only falling off when they're pecking at each other and pushing each other around and trying to decide who's sleeping where for the night. which is kind of what they're doing right now. Of course, the nesting boxes, which I've already gone over. These are our 4 external facing nesting boxes, which I've shown before in other videos. Then I put a couple of old onion crates in here, but you can use any kind of crate. I've seen people use milk crates, etc. They like for those to be, you know, a little bit dark, a little bit secluded. Privacy is a preference when laying eggs. So another thing that you want to do is have an area for a, what you might call a quarantine box or a broody box area. So yeah, let's see if you can see under there. I don't know with the light, a little bit. So there's another chicken under there hanging out by herself. There's like a small low to the ground roosting bar in there too. We have a very long gate that my husband built that matches up with this entire section, and then it's got the chick. Some people that if you don't have this style of coop or you can't build that, you could use a medium-sized dog crate for a quarantine area. So what reasons might you want a place like this, or when do you need to quarantine or broody, etc.? So when they're broody, that of course just means they're, you know, sitting on eggs and going to hatch them. If you're going to let them do that, that's fine. And they don't need to necessarily be quarantined for that period. You probably don't want them to be, really. And technically, most people will say you don't need to give mom and baby some space either after the chick or chicks are born. However, what can happen? What happened with our hen that went broody this summer? She took over this egg box right here and wanted to hatch a bunch of eggs. Well, that's fine, except we really wanted that nesting box open back up. But also we kind of realized when the baby was born, it could hop down, but it is not hopping back up in there. That's a lot of space for a baby chick. And you know, the chick will stay very close to the mom, do what the mom says, do everything the mom does. And if she's getting in and out of the nesting box constantly all day to go get food and water that are way out there in the run, and then so this baby's expected to go down that ramp, you know, fight with all the other hens and potentially the rooster, and then also come back up the ramp and climb back up in here. So for us, we just decided, so yes, while you can just leave them be and let them do their thing, you decide based on your area, the chickens that you have, what's going on in your coop, if you want to, you know, section them off to give them their own space or not. But ultimately we decided she needed her own space. So once she did hatch the baby, she ended up only hatching one. We only let her have 2 eggs, and one hatched and one didn't. So once she did, we put her in here, and then we had, so it's actually quite a luxury apartment for a chicken. We put her in here, put the gate up. They have their own little food and water dish. And we left them in there for a couple of weeks. Then when the chick is bigger, more established, we opened it up, let him out. Our flock was great. Our rooster was great. He is the daddy. Sometimes that certainly doesn't matter with chickens, but they did great. Nobody messed with mom and baby, and chickens usually know that too. Most of them don't mess with a broody or new chicken mom because she will be very mean and she will hold her own. Next, I have a friend who uses hers as like a timeout box for naughty chickens, or somebody that's excessively mean. So it's normal for chickens to peck at each other, and that's where that phrase comes from, the pecking order. But it's a very real thing in the chicken world. They take it seriously. However, sometimes a hen can overdo it, cause bleeding or injuries to other hens, and you do need to intervene. The quickest and easiest way to intervene is by making them have a timeout. So you try to give them an attitude adjustment in doing this. My friend will put her hen in the quarantine box for 3 days or so to kind of help reset her brain, then let her back into the flock to see if she can behave. So it also gives the other chickens that were being pecked a break and some time to heal. So you might want to use it for that. And then finally, you could use a space like this as a quarantine box for chickens that have an injury. So keep in mind, I'm not talking about like contagious respiratory illnesses like bird flu or other things that chickens can share and give to each other, kind of making the whole flock sick. I'm also not talking about like if you have an infestation of mites or fleas. That's also something that's going to affect your entire flock, and just putting a chicken or two in a space like this is not going to solve those kinds of problems. But we've had chickens that have had physical injuries, and we've quarantined them off and given them their own space to heal. And that a slipped tendon or broken legs can be sort of common with chickens. We've only had it happen once with a chicken. But again, giving them their own space for a little bit to see if they can work it out. Or if you are someone who's going to be taking your chickens to the vet, we don't do that. They just we take very good care of them for what we're supposed to do, and then they have to fend for themselves beyond that. But some people do, spend that extra time and money on their chickens. So if you're going to do something like that and you went to an avian vet and they wrapped the chicken's leg, for example, it would be good to have it, give it its own space for a little bit for healing. Right, so other optional items to consider over time. We had the swing out in the run, but chickens do like toys, especially in the winter months when it's boring. And if they're going to be literally cooped up, as the saying goes, and they don't have much else to do, that is when you can get some irritation, kind of like with kids. They start picking on each other, and they're just mean because they're bored. So adding chicken toys, you can look up online what types of toys are appropriate. Honestly, some of them I don't think are appropriate, by the way. Things with shiny small beads, that's not a good idea for a chicken. I wouldn't get anything like that, but there are other things that are popular. The chicken swing, things for them to climb on, those things are standard and straightforward and not going to cause any injury. Another thing that I have recently purchased, and I thought about it for a long time before I did, was just this ball thrower. It's called a Chuck It. That might be the brand and what the product is. I'm really liking that so far, and the couple of things that I use that for, they will lay eggs. For example, back to this little section under here, that's way back in a corner under a bunch of stuff. Have to crawl back in there. So just for reaching in and getting eggs out of strange areas is really nice. Another thing is, if you have a chicken who just doesn't want to get off the nest, or they're going broody and you don't want them to, they will not move and they will peck the heck out of your hand. So if you just want to kind of reach under a hen and without getting pecked constantly, that's the other nice reason to have those. Now, side note about getting hen pecked. If you're an adult, that doesn't really hurt. It's just an unpleasant sensation. But for kids, they'll likely not be okay with it. And on occasion, a chicken can draw blood if they're being aggressive. Everyone's pain tolerance is different too, so do what you want. And also, if you're teaching your kids about chicken keeping, you don't want them to become afraid of egg collecting or getting pecked by a chicken. But also, still, again, this can be a useful tool to have. I don't like being startled by it, knowing it's going to happen, but not knowing when. So just for my ultimate comfort, I will use that. And honestly, I kind of more, if I'm getting eggs underneath from a hen that's in a box, I more actually use it to hold the hen back and then just grab the eggs with my hand. But whatever, you do what you want. Another great thing that could be useful is adding a camera system over time. We do have a camera system that points at the coop, the outside of the coop. That is wonderful. You just like a Ring camera, you can set it to give you notifications, motion censored. It can record if you need it to. We've used it on the inside of the coop in the past too, just to kind of see what's going on in here. Sometimes you come out here and you're like, something happened out here, but I can't tell what, or who's laying eggs and who's not. Or, we have not had a predator breach, but if that were to happen, you could go back and see, well, what was the predator that got my chickens? What happened in here? And then you can, or how did it get in? I thought we had our coop really well sealed, so how did that predator get in? Okay, and lastly, this is a light, which I'm at this point very overdue in this video for taking it or turning it off for the night for the chickens so they can get to bed and I can get out of their way. But in the winter, having just some kind of light source in here to help them lay, more consistently or a little bit more often when you have shorter days, less sunlight. Having a light in here really helps encourage that laying and just gives them a little bit of that artificial sunlight feel. This is not a heated light, and you can probably tell by looking at that. I think it's like an LED. It plugs in. This one doesn't even have batteries, but it plugs into a charger. So we just charge them in the house, then bring them out here as needed, and we'll shut it off. Okay, and so if you guys are watching this and you've been keeping chickens for a while, what are some of the essentials that you have in your coop and run? Leave a comment and let us know, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by Go and Grow Homestead.